my screen? Okay, good. Fantastic. Okay, so the title of this webinar is the Ultimate Clinical Research Toolbox, but also it's Have You Questioned the Nature of Your Reality? And the reason why I picked this question was just because I watch a lot of HBO here in the US. Well, not a lot of HBO. HBO has a show called Westworld, and there's a question that always comes up about, are you questioning your reality? So in life, if we do not really question where we are, then we definitely can never tell, what the next steps of our lives would be. So that said, again, welcome. During this webinar, I'm going to share some really important information, and it's just information that I think a lot of people do not know about just because of the nature of the industry that I've been in for over 15 years. And hopefully that will trigger something within you and help you maybe take the next steps in your life and your career or your business or whatever level of success that you would like to achieve. So the flow of this course, I'm going to talk about the clinical research and mindset. And by mindset, I mean I have sprinkled quite a bit of mindset work within this presentation because that's how the Ultimate Clinical Research Toolbox is structured. It's to give you the tools and resources that you need to be successful in clinical trials, but also it gives you mindset training so that you can really take your success to the next level. And then I've also put in a few questions just to kind of trigger your subconscious mind, right? And giving you things to play around with. Then I'm going to talk about the clinical research industry, why it's very unique, and why I personally think that every physician, clinician, healthcare professional, or business person, or someone who wants a career should be in this industry. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about success, some definitions of success. Then I'm going to talk about my clinical trials journey. And after that, I'm going to talk about the Ultimate Clinical Research Toolbox, and then I'm going to end with some inspiration. And if that sounds okay, just raise your hand so that way I see that all is well. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, great. So let's begin. I start with the power of questions. And I would say in a sense that my company has really been all about asking powerful questions to move me forward. And so the first question is, if the path to our dreams is knowing where we are and where we really want to go, why aren't we there yet, right? Many times, we know exactly what we want to do in our lives. Oh, I want to set up a clinical research practice, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to meet up with some doctors, and we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to do it. But for some reason, that never happens. And I know a lot of times people tell us that it's about setting the right goals and that you have to work really hard. But is that really accurate? So that's just two questions that I would like us to just kind of really think about in terms of how it relates to our lives. So a few more questions. If I were to ask you about the clinical trials industry, what would you tell me, right? And would you know how it contributes to the advancement of healthcare around the world, or how running clinical trials can completely transform a clinic or hospital, its staff and its patients, or how a clinical trials practice can add over six-figure monthly income to a clinic or hospital? I probably not, right? Because there's just not being in the industry, sometimes it can be really hard to answer those questions. So if the answer is no, then you probably do not have any idea about running clinical trials. And that's probably why you're on this call, or how it can impact your life, your clinic or career. And after being in this industry for so long, I compare it to the land of 1,000 mansions. We all locked up, and, people are just kind of running around and trying to figure out which keys actually open which mansion. And so we need to have the right information to benefit from the gifts that are within this industry. So I'll talk about the fact that it's a very unique industry, and I'm just going to define what exactly clinical trials are and what exactly we do around the world. And I found this definition from the Australian National Health Medical Research Council. Now, there are many definitions based on where we are in the world. The FDA has one, Health Canada has one. But of all the different definitions by regulatory authorities around the world, I really like this one from Australia because it really shows the vast nature of the industry and the different possibilities. So it's basically saying that clinical trials are research investigations in which people volunteer to test new treatments, in interventions or tests as a means to prevent, to detect, to treat or manage various diseases or medical conditions. And that some investigations look at how people respond to new interventions and what side effects might occur. Yes, the definition is long, but I just want us to really focus on the abundance of this industry. I mean, we're looking at products that can test, they can detect, they can treat, and this is all over the world, right? And so just think about the different possibilities of how we can impact people's lives with what is happening in clinical trials. So the industry is unique in the sense that I think most industries everyone will say their industry is probably unique, right? But I think this industry is unique in the sense that it's always been sort of a mystery. What exactly is R&D? How do drugs come to the market or devices or products? People often don't really realize what happens before that. And so before proceeding, let me make sure you're still there. Olu, are you still there? Can you hear me? Oh, fantastic. Okay, good. So there are different players, and based on what country you're in, they're all so just think about it at the highest level. It's highly regulated, right? You have the FDA in the US, Health Canada, you saw the Australian Medical Health and Research Council, EMA, in Europe. I mean, every region country has had the highest level of government or the regulatory authority that manages everything, right? They make sure that, the products that are being brought to the market are safe before they're consumed by the general population. The second player is the sponsor, that would be the pharma company or the biotech or the biopharma. They basically own the product. They're the ones who are researching it, right? And they're the ones who are going to bring it to the market. But you can also have some doctors or investigators who would initiate their own studies. They could do it on their own, or they could get grants from the pharma company. And then, of course, you have the clinical research organization. That's really a middleman, and they could manage one aspect of the study or multiple aspects of the study. And study is just a word that we use for clinical trials. I'll probably say that so many times. Then you have the Institutional Review Board or in the Independent Ethics Committee. That's more Europe and Canada. And these are organizations that have oversight over the clinical research sites. So typically they ensure that the trial is being managed properly at the clinical research site. And then in the industry, you can have data monitoring boards that can look at certain data that's coming out from the study. Is it safe? Are they meeting certain milestones? And how does that really affect the patients or the lives of the patients who are involved? Then we have a lot of vendors. You can have recruitment vendors who have supplies and labs. And I have consulted a lot of massive global studies where you could have vendors located at different countries, or say vendors who are supplying in the investigational product. They can have different depots around the world. So that's in a sense who are the players in the industry. There are a few others, but these are the most important ones. And then, so let's move on to the challenges in this industry, which I think will benefit you all, because, challenges always call for people to come in and take things to the next level. So we have a shortage of clinical research sites, and that is really that's why I created the Ultimate Clinical Research Toolbox, really because of this part, because everything starts at the clinical research facility. If we do not have enough clinicians or people or staff who are getting their patients involved in clinical trials, then we really cannot bring as many products to the market, right? Then staff shortage is the next issue. We don't have a lot of sites, and of course, obviously, we won't have a lot of people who are trained in clinical trials. And I will get to the reason why this often happens. Then we have new challenges with, technology, and then we now have a really great need for special population. I'm sure, Olu, you're in the UK, the population is growing, there's diversity. And so I know here in the US, the trials really, the FDA really mandates that you need really diverse populations, whether it's age, it's gender, sexuality, race. I mean, we really want that because the primary reason is because, I would say that you probably know about it, but there are many different economies coming up in the world that now are having a really massive, middle class. The income distribution in the world is changing, and of course, in the U.S., it's the same thing that's happening. So the populations that consume products are different. So you cannot have a product that is being tested and it's only tested on maybe people of Caucasian descent. That's just not something that can fly anymore. We need it tested on different types of people. And then, of course, there's globalization. A lot of companies do outsource trials, and just working at the global level, trials typically can take place across 20 to 50 countries. And then we also have virtual trials now, which is really allowing for that global scope to happen, right? Everything is stored in one location, so we can have different clinical trials happening in Poland, in the UK, or just France, Italy, India. India is very huge right now in terms of clinical trials. So I'm going to pause there for a second, and I'm going to talk about success, right? And it's just something that is also part of this course. People often say financial and personal success has a lot to do with being at the right place at the right time. But what I've realized, especially in my business, in my life, or with the employees that I have, is that sometimes we're at the right place at the right time, but many times we don't make it. And why? It's just because we are not aware that we are at the right place at the right time. And let me ask you a question. Can you hear? My AC just came on in my office, and I just wanted to make sure that is not a disturbance. Can you hear it, Olu? Okay, great. No problem. Okay, so we are not aware that we are at the right place at the right time. So it's awareness that is missing, right? So we do not just have to be at the right place at the right time, but we have to be aware. Like, just the fact that you're here listening to this course, being aware, it just makes a huge difference. So let's move on. Imagine how your life would change if everything in our life comes from a level of awareness. Imagine how your life could change if awareness just expanded by a small degree. And how does awareness expand? By getting new information, right? So the more information that we get and the more we stay present and we really understand and digest that information, and it changes so much in our lives. So now I'm going to go on to the last aspect of success. One of the things that I find really works for my experience, my clients' experience, and just the interactions in this program is that sustainable success occurs through effective education combined with professional coaching over a reasonable period of time. So sometimes you can just get the education, but then, you take a course, and I've done that, take a course, and that's it, really. There is nothing else after that. But when you actually take the course and then you have professional coaching at it, which means that the course is there, you have someone who is there to ensure that you're being successful and that all your questions are answered, and it's that you can get to the next level. It just makes a big difference. And then, of course, over a reasonable period of time. And in this case, with the Ultimate Clinical Research Toolbox, it's a lifetime, right? But when you have that going on constantly, it makes a huge difference. And if you look at all the research, it actually shows that, we need to have satellite systems that allow everyone to be successful in whatever it is that they're doing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. And before saying this, I'm going to talk about why I'm very passionate about clinical trials, why I truly believe that it is something that can really transform any clinic and any hospital, like I said, in anybody's life, and what I really envision for my clients and the people who actually set up clinical research sites. So I got into the industry about 15 years ago. I had just completed an internship with the United Nations Tribunal for Rwanda, and I really wanted to work in an industry that was similar in the sense that I wanted something international, and I like to contribute, I like to be a part of something that is bigger. And then I stumbled into this industry in the weirdest way. Won't go into the details, but everything truly changed for me. And over the years, it did not start off, I did not do it on purpose. I just happened to be very curious, and I really wanted to know more about this industry, right? So I came in as an admin, and I thought, okay, I'm just came out of school, and I'm just going to, come in and see what happens. And then I started really understanding what was going on. I became a data manager. I became a clinical research associate who actually goes to the research facility and trains people and monitors everything, moved into a senior level, and then I created my own business. And I thought, one of the ways that I can really help more people is by consulting with several companies. So that said, I did some lead work as a monitor. Then I became a recruitment specialist, really working with investigators at the clinical research side and seeing ways that they can actually market and how they can recruit for the clinical trials. And then I worked at the country level as a project leader, and then eventually became a global studies project manager, consulting across really massive projects with large pharma and small, small pharma and, and CROs, and just across about, so far maybe I've a little bit over 40 therapeutic areas, working on devices, biologics, drugs. But that said, one of the things that I really have enjoyed is the ability to take a clinical research facility and ensure that it is successful. Also coaching and mentoring the teams that I am managing, and really ensuring that we're managing these trials at a really high level. And of course, so working with not just the teams, but the investigators as well. One of the benefits in this industry for investigators is that you can become a key opinion leader. And so you're someone who contributes to the protocols that are being written and everything. So I work a lot with KOLs. And then, of course, I organize a lot of audits and created best practices across different countries. And also, personally, I studied online and offline marketing, from search engine optimization, social media marketing, just because I wanted to be in a position as a business owner to be able to support and service people in the best way possible. So these are not just accolades of myself. It's just understanding my vantage point that I have worked at different levels in the industry, so I know everything about the industry and how to take a clinical research side and make it extremely successful. So I want to talk about my passion, why I do this. I honestly believe that the more clinical research sites we have, the more we can expand patient access worldwide to the cutting edge treatment and technologies in clinical trials. And I'm particularly passionate about Africa because that's where I was born. And I just find that, speaking with various contacts there, we really have to, it's important to expand that network. And another place that I'm working a lot with is India, because you have all these countries that have the population, the diverse population that is needed for clinical trials, but they don't have access to the setup. And so people keep taking different certifications and courses, and that doesn't take them anywhere because it's not practical knowledge. So my other passion, I want to demystify clinical trials management and make it accessible to anyone in the world. And that's what I've done with this course, that anyone, anywhere in the world can set up a clinical trials practice from scratch and make it successful. And then I also wanted to provide clinicians tools for running quality streamlined studies, right? And I also wanted to create a proven, predictable system for earning new income streams that can benefit the clinician staff, their practice, and their patients. So one thing I really believe in is that believe in is that knowledge plus experience is savoir faire, the know-how. It's a big deal for everyone. You can have the knowledge, no experience, and you're kind of hovering, right? But when you have both, then you really have the tools and the skills that you need to keep going. Okay, Olu, I'm going to check in on you because I really like to make sure that you're still there and you're engaged. Fantastic. Okay, good. Let's keep going then. Okay, so let me talk about the ultimate clinical research toolbox. I've talked about a lot of things, but I'll say something first. We have talked about the one reason why we are not where we're not getting the results we want is because we're not aware. But there's also something else that is absolutely important. One of the things that I find is that for success, you also have to understand why you're getting the results that you're getting. So I usually give the analogy of being in, maybe playing a football game or soccer games like they say in the US, and you're just scoring all these goals and everybody's like, goal, goal, but you don't know how come you're scoring all the goals. If someone actually asked you, how are you scoring all these goals? You probably would not be able to tell them. But if you knew the strategy that you implemented right, you're going to be able to sustain that success, right? And so if we knew how we're getting the results that we're getting, we can accomplish everything. And that's why the ultimate clinical research toolbox has a proven, predictable, and measurable way to measure to ensure success. So the ultimate clinical research toolbox is a step-by-step guide which helps you to set up, run, and profit from clinical trials anywhere in the world. And again, I keep saying it's proven, it's predictable, and it's measurable, and it guarantees success. So it's not just one isolated course program that you can get into and then try a few things and dabble. This is actually hands-on experience. That's why it's called a toolbox, because it actually gives you the step-by-step process, and then you, of course, get all the coaching that you need. You get support that just really keeps you going. And that way, you can not just do the course, but you can also take it to higher levels of excellence as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit based on my background. I want to talk about some of the trends that have been happening that really caused me as well to create this program. I started off by setting up clinical research sites, like I said, hands-on, one-on-one. And then just being on global studies, one of the biggest trends is that principal investigators and staff have a high chance of getting dinged by the sponsor, or worse, by the FDA during routine audits. And this is particularly common for new clinical research sites. The reason is that the way that many investigators get into clinical research just is mind-boggling. So maybe Dr. Patel goes to a conference in France, and then he hangs out with Dr. Russo, and they're like, oh, guess what? I'm running clinical trials. Really? How is that going? Oh, we just started. We're very excited. And then all of a sudden, Dr. Patel gets, an audit, and it is just a mess because he doesn't know what he's doing. And and then all of a sudden he gets issued a 483 here in the US. Before you know it, he's disbarred. But just from things that he did not know about, because people know there's a lot of money in this industry. It's very lucrative, and yet they don't have the right information. And you remember how I mentioned how everything is highly regulated at the federal level or the government level. But when you start trickling down, it's just mind-boggling that there is no way to take a doctor and say, listen, you want to set up a clinical research site. This is what you do with your equipment, your staff, your facility. This is what happens when the sponsor contacts you. So what has happened is that sponsors and pharma companies, and I will get into more details later, we keep using the same facility. So when I set up for a global trial, I don't have the time to go train anybody, a new site on how to run clinical trials, right? As a private person, I might do that, but I have to get deliverables. I have to get the first patient into the project. So when I'm looking at facilities across the world, I am thinking to myself, I need, doctors that are already running clinical trials. The other thing is that I mentioned the staff do not have experience for success. So it's always run like a mom and pop shop. You have a few large institutions that run clinical trials, but even then, it's just fascinating to me that if somebody says something to somebody, all the training is hands-on. I cannot tell how many times I've spoken with investigators and their staff, and I'm always interviewing them. How did you get into clinical trials? Well, I spoke to somebody, and then how did you get your training? Yeah, somebody showed me what to do, and then I did the certification, and it's very interesting. And then the other thing is that many sites have challenges with staff turnover. Clearly, it's an industry that has shortage of staff. So the few people who are in it, know that they're in very high demand. And the other thing is that then there are others who come in, they don't have a system for training. So they get discouraged and they end up, leaving and moving on to something else. The other thing with the investigators who come in who are newbies, the other challenges they face is that, of course, they have a busy schedule. So they don't know what kind of oversight to have on the study. No one has really provided that kind of information to them, right? And then there is an audit and there is a big problem because they're not in the study in the sense that they're not documenting properly and things like that. And pharma and sponsor companies spend a lot of money on audits. We now have organizations that provide oversight just because there's so many issues going on that, these issues are not taken on from the beginning. They're always caught right in the middle of the process. And then, of course, the understanding of clinical trials procedures. Again, many people do not understand how a clinical trial is run, how I can have a clinical research site, how I can make it extremely successful by certain practices. What does the sponsor want? What does the data management department want? What does safety want? Who are the people to contact, right? And then there is this trend where clinicians or their staff or business people partner up with certain people. They partner up, and then this individual comes and says, "Yeah, I know how to run clinical trials." They've never been in the industry. Maybe they work with a site, but they've not worked at the global level, so they don't really know what the expectations are. And then a clinician goes into it, and he doesn't realize that he's just basically there to, sort of oversee patients. He doesn't even know what his responsibilities are. So you got to watch out for that. Those are some of the things that go on. And then again, there's no proven, measurable, predictable system to acquire trials. There are facilities that already have a few trials, but they don't. Once those trials are gone, it's still going back to maybe the project manager or the global studies manager. And I did get a lot of emails. Oh, do you have any more studies for me? And the global project manager is extremely busy setting up new studies, creating Gantt charts for other projects. So really, they do not have the time to come back and say, oh, we're hoping to use you for my next study. They might, but it's not guaranteed. Then, of course, I talked about, operational issues, just some lack of knowledge and experience. So the ultimate clinical research toolbox is extremely effective because, again, it's highly structured. It's a step-by-step process. It's a comprehensive study program, and it's designed to facilitate profound permanent change in any clinical research practice. And it's a proven, predictable course that ensures your success and avoids the pitfalls of, I call it hearsay clinical research management. The Dr. Patel and Dr. Russo stories, or somebody just comes in and you're setting up a clinical trial, but they don't really know what you're doing, and it's a mess because they just want to make a whole bunch of money and just, disappear. So I talked about the importance of having effective education combined with professional coaching over a reasonable period of time, and that's how the ultimate clinical research toolbox is structured. It is structured so that you have all the tools and resources you need, not just to set up a practice wherever you are. I think only you're in Bristol, but you can set up a practice anywhere in the world if you have partners, who want to discuss ways to expand. You can do that because you have a system in place that can create as many clinical research sites as possible all over the world, and that's what really makes this very, very effective. The other thing that I want to say, it's the first course of its kind. If you go online and you Google clinical research training, a whole bunch of stuff will come up, all theory. I've taken a lot of certifications. I definitely have my own share. But there is actually no course that's going to say, okay, day one, this is what you do. If you have a monitor coming to your site, this is what you do. If you have a facility, set it up. calibrate all your equipment. It's like practical hands-on knowledge. There's really no course like that. A lot of these um, companies, have webinars and seminars. And so what they do is they focus more on the government and the federal level, all the different certifications, but really breaking it down to an investigator. Hands-on instructions are not present. And so this course, what I really enjoy is that it really gives you different vantage points, right? So you get on, you have a clinical research side, you already know what to do because you're looking at the data management piece, the monitoring piece, the safety piece. You know what your role is as a staff or clinician. You know what kinds of meetings that you're supposed to have. And that way, that takes you to a level that no other sites have before. And of course, there is the mindset training piece, which I really incorporated because I think that's crucial. Knowing that you have not just the tools for success in the clinical trials industry, but other tools that can allow you to really expand your awareness of who you are. And the course, like I said, has different vantage points, PI and study staff training. The marketing techniques are very cutting edge because it's about getting the site ready and getting it up and running immediately and having studies coming in. And then, of course, we have weekly Q&A sessions. We have Facebook Live. We have a YouTube channel as well. But it's really a satellite system that ensures that you're always plugged in, and that way you get the support that you need. And I really believe that anyone should have the opportunity to step into this industry and succeed. And I also am passionate about giving business owners the knowledge to partner with clinicians. So it's either you want to create a clinical research site, or you want to have a career in clinical research, or you're like, I'm a business owner, I want to partner up with doctors in my area, and I'm going to use this course to train them on how to run clinical trials. This is definitely something you want to look into. I did talk about certifications in the industry already. It's, there are good clinical practices, the history of clinical trials, from the Belmont Report and the Helsinki Agreement, if I can say that. So you have all these different things that are really more around the history, and they're talked about in conferences and webinars. You have the FDA has a lot of guidance that they provide, but again, there's all these things that are like umbrellas, but the main issue of really training investigators properly to set up a site is, for some reason, it's not happening, and it ends up being more oversight to ensure that the issues that are going on they're easily managed. Smaller companies are busy. I've consulted for quite a few to set up global trials. They don't have the resources and the training. I mean, they want to use sites that are actually extremely experienced, right? But I always ask this question: what if we had hundreds of new facilities added to each year that was skilled and qualified? Why not? Why can't we have that added? That would translate for more income for medical practices, more patients around the world having access to clinical trials. We have clinicians and staff with a balanced work schedule, because many of the clinicians who actually come and manage clinical trials end up only doing that because you have the work-life balance and you're seeing the patients that you enjoy seeing. But then you have this massive income coming in that really allows for you to be able to spend time with your family and to do some of the things that you've always wanted to do, but you just haven't got around to, right? And then, of course, more facilities that are well-trained, quality and safe data for quality data, safe patients. And so we're bringing quality data to the market from sites that are at the highest level of excellence, and patients are safe in clinical trials. And then, of course, faster delivery of new cutting-edge products to the market. So really everyone benefits. So I'm going to pause here, Olu, and I'm going to tell you the kinds of people that I think that this course is really good for. And just raise your hand. Let me make sure you're still there. Fantastic. So who is this course for? If you want to set up a successful clinical research site and you're unsure how to do it, that's who this course is for. You want to work on a clinical research site, absolutely for you. You've tried to set up a clinical research site in the past without success, and I have to tell you, there are a lot of stories. Setting up in the past year for a few investigators, I've just heard a lot of stories. It's fascinating. But then you have a clinical research site. but you don't have a predictable training or marketing system. The two important things, you want to make sure that the staff are trained quickly and efficiently, and you want to make sure that you have a good marketing system in place that's going to make sure that you keep having those trials coming in. And then if you're ready to make serious life changes, I started my own company and and did so many different things in this industry, and then ended up creating this course because I really believe that we're here to contribute. We're here to make a difference, and we're here to make serious life changes, right? So that's who is we love having on this course. This program is not for someone who obviously is not ready to quickly and permanently transform their goal, dream, or desire to own a successful clinical site into reality or to work in the industry. If you're not ready, it's absolutely okay. This definitely is not for you. People who make excuses and complain, right? I mean, it's definitely not going to work. People who are stuck in information gathering mode and are not prepared to take action and get results. I've been there, not taking the next step and just stuck in collecting a whole lot of data and not doing anything about it. Okay, so I'm at the end, and one of the inspirations that I have is from Neville Goddard, and I just think he's probably just really a very deep thinker. And one of his quotes is that man's chief delusion is his conviction that there are causes other than his own state of consciousness. All that befalls a man, all that is done by him, all that comes from him happens as a result of his state of consciousness. A man's consciousness is all that he thinks and desires and loves, and all that he believes is true and consents to. That is why a change of consciousness is necessary before you can change your outer world. Rain falls as a result of a change in the temperature in the higher regions of the atmosphere. So, in like manner, a change of circumstance happens as a result of a change in your state of consciousness. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So that is the end. And now I'm going to go into the Q&A. So just give me a second, and I'm going to